Hello, my name is Jose Rodriguez Rivas. This is my uh, update video for my capstone project at CSUCI Channel Islands. My project is a pretty much a program that allows people to make top-down 2D RPG games in without having to code, and it's for desktop. Just to kind of define kind of the scope of the project, because this project is actually a lot larger, and it's a project that I've been meaning to do personally for quite a long time. Uh, the scope for the capstone itself, so what I plan on turning in this May, is to have a program that allows people to make kind of simple maps that a character can walk around and interact with objects, like, for example, talk to a character, have choices that have different things happen based on what was selected, control variables and global flags that allow them to kind of have some sort of progression in the game and like allow switching between maps and then just having that. So it'll basically kind of be just like a visual choose your own adventure at that point. There won't be much like battling and stuff yet. That might be too much to implement just in the amount of time I have left. But without further ado, I want to get into what the progress is so far. I'm really excited to show that off. And go ahead and run it. So the first thing that happens when you run the application is you get this kind of a welcome screen. Um, you know how like a lot of like editors have welcome screens that let you select the projects you've recently worked on. You can click on open to manually open a project file, or you can click on new project. I'm going to go ahead and click on new project. I'm going to click on select, and I have a folder here for like test projects. I'll just call this one demo. Hit enter and select that folder. So a project is going to be created in this folder. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create, and we'll get this window here. This is where the main map editor will show up. That's something that I'm planning on developing next week, actually, like over the spring break that's about to start. Um, so this will be populated very soon. Um, and that will be kind of like where we get into like the core the main showing off point of the capstone project for the May presentation. I do want to show the folder that it just created. It created a folder demo. It created a whole bunch of stuff here. So the first thing that was created was this TCG proj folder or file. This right here will identify this folder as a project folder and will tell the editor that this folder can be opened. But if you look inside, it's literally just a JSON file, which has the creation date and the title of the project. It also created two JSON files, the asset library and the system. We'll go into that later. It copied a bunch of starter assets that right now are kind of borrowed from other things. Hopefully by the end of the semester, I can like kind of make kind of like simple starter assets so that I can kind of use my own thing. And then data here, we have some data that I've been kind of working on. Okay, so what I have developed so far is this kind of core, kind of like the database for the assets for the most part. So right here, this little folder icon, you hover over it, it says Asset Manager. Go ahead and click that. You can see I have music assets, sound effect assets, images, sprite sheet pages, tile sets, and icon pages. So I'll go into kind of what all of these are and how they're different from each other. So music refers to songs, and in the game engine that's the runtime is going to be operating off, there is a difference between music and sound effect, as in most game engines and most audio libraries. Music is meant to be played once, like each individual music track is meant to be played once at a time. Um, and it's kind of like streamed. So it's not like loaded entirely into memory. I think that's how it works. I'm not too sure, but the idea is that this is meant for long tracks that are meant to be playing over time and can loop. So what we have here is we can actually preview this asset right here. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of turn it down a little bit and then preview it. You probably won't hear it because I even have my desktop audio turned down on the recording. But you can see there it is working, and it's previewing the song. And to stop it from playing, I'm just going to click away and then click back. Right now, there's no like stop button. Maybe I should add that later on, but it's not something I added here. So that's music. If I wanted to import music, I'm just gonna click this import button, and it only right now we only support MP3 files specifically. That more has to do with the runtime for the engine for the engine for the runtime. Sorry, the runtime is built off libgdx, and it does have limitations for sound files. And so I'm just going to restrict it to MP3 to keep things nice and simple. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead, and I have a project that I've worked on in the past that has some music that I've created. So, well, not really that I've created. Well, regardless, I'm just gonna go ahead and pick something like level select here. We'll just choose that, and I'll click OK. And you can come here. Now I can preview this one. So it did actually copy that that file into the assets folder here. I could have organized this assets folder into like the different types of assets, but I didn't think to at first and decided just to leave it the way it is because ultimately, like, no one really needs to see these assets folder. It's organized within the editor. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and preview this. You can see that it is playing the different songs. And also there is dependency management, but I'll get into that a little later in the video. We can talk about dependency management. So then these are sound effects. Sound effects are meant to be played as many times at a time as we want. They're just kind of like quickly loaded into memory and then just played individually. So it's super simple. They're meant to be short, just things that just kind of play on an event. So right now we just have like system sound effects. Like for example, here's like the cursor sound effect for when we're navigating the menu. This is like when you cancel, when you make a decision, when you try to click on something that's like not valid, you know, it's a little buzzer sound effect. And we can play it, well, not in the preview, you can't play it multiple times at once, but in the runtime you can. Then we have images. Images are so and also I can import sound effects. I guess I should go into doing that. We have core assets. We can go sound and have this like jump sound effect that I can play. And there it is, a new sound effect that just got brought in. Then we have images. These images are meant to be displayed like in their entirety. They're just like textures that get displayed on the screen or used in other ways. So for example, there's the UI skin. This is a very specific format. We have the background of the UI, then the texture that goes over the background. We have like a 9 patch for the border, and then over here we have arrow controls for like different UI elements. This is like an animated one for when like messages have like multiple. And then this right here is kind of like the highlight for like choices and stuff. This is a borrowed format, but I think I'm going to stick to the layout of this, but just use a different like actual texture. And I don't know what the colors do, but I don't think they actually are all that relevant. So there's that. And then we have the title screen. I'll get into the title screen later, but you can preview images, you can resize and scale. The image stays nice and put. So I can actually import images. I think there are some good images here to import. Let me double check. Let's see. I don't actually think there really are any. Here, I'll just import this icon here. So this is just for another game I developed a while ago. So I'll just import that. You can see there's this image right here. Next are these things. These are other types of images, but they're used in different contexts. So a sprite sheet page. Oh, and also all of these are tiled images. So they're images that are meant to represent multiple things in one single image. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So a sprite sheet page is basically like a page of characters. So I'm going to go ahead and import a sprite sheet page so that I can kind of show you what I mean. So the way that characters will be rendered in the game, and this comes from like RPG Maker here, we have characters. We have these pages of sprite sheets. So you can see this page has multiple sprite sheets in it. So a sprite sheet is going to be a single character, and each character is a 4x3 grid of animation frames where the top one is them walking facing down, then facing left, then facing right, then facing up. So each, not only is this image split up into a grid of sprite sheets, but those sprite sheets are then also individually split up into a grid of animation cells. So when we import a sprite sheet, we're prompted for rows and columns. So the rows here is going to be how many rows of sprite sheets there are, and you'll see how this changes. So there's 2 rows here. You can see what happened. There's the blue outline. This outlines the actual separations between the sprite sheets, and then the white outline separates the cells from each other. So you can see as soon as I put a 2 here, the cells were put into their correct rows. So pretty much each one is 4 rows. So when I have 2 rows, I have 4 rows of, or I have 8 rows of cells. Similarly with columns, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. So I'm going to put 4 here. You can see the blue separates the individual characters, and the white separates the animation cells. And you can see there's 8 rows of animation cells if there are 2 columns, and there are 3 times 4, so 12 uh, columns of animation cells if there are 4 sprite sheets. Okay. And we can go ahead and we can preview this. I had to build this preview a little bit more custom than I did the other one for images, but I was hoping I was able to capture the same thing. This is because I have to use very custom like canvas to render this to get the like lines to draw exactly where I want them to be. So, but you can preview your sprite sheets here. And same with I can also import. I just wanted to show another example where I import. I don't know where I'm going. Oh, where I import something that doesn't have 4x2 or 2x4, which is kind of like the standard. But we can also have characters that, for example, like this monster one, that only has one sprite sheet in it, and each individual row is like animation cells. This is kind of like more specific for RPG Maker, but I just wanted to show it is possible to have a single sprite sheet in the page. You just set the rows and columns to 1. You can see those get imported. And I can remove them if I want. I don't know if I showed removing any of these, but regardless, next we have tile sets. Tile sets are going to be the sprite, kind of another tiled image, except it's only a single tiled image. It's not like split up into multiple, in which we can actually start to see what the sorry, what the what the maps are going to be made out of. So the tile sets and the sprite sheets aren't necessarily used yet, but they will be used soon. And sorry, I'm just pulling something up on another screen so that I can do some like quick calculations because I need to know what the values are going to be. Right. Oh, hold on. Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I'm gonna bring in a tile set. Um, and this tile set is a tile set I made. This is for a platformer, so it doesn't really make sense for this context for a top-down game, but I just wanted to show the how this works. So this tile set, each tile is so I made a decision to have you also define these by rows and columns. A lot of like tile set like map editors have you define tile width and height in terms of pixels, but I didn't want to have to do that. I want to keep this nice and simple. So if we know this the pixel size, we can literally just divide the width. So this is 10 columns and it's 4 rows. So you can see there I am, split up this tile sheet into tiles. You can see it's all blue outlines. I kind of like the light blue for like the tile outline. So that's what I went ahead with here. So I'm going to go ahead and preview this, and we can see it's a low resolution image. That's why it's like blurry when I expand it out. But you can see the separators here. So what will end up happening is this will be able to be used to kind of paint our maps. So we kind of use these as like different as the different cells on the grid of the map, and they will tile. And you can have multiple tile sets per map, but I haven't implemented that yet. So last but not least, there are icon pages. So I'm going to go ahead and just preview this built-in one. Um, you can see it's pretty big. It's a pretty big image. So when we actually use this, it's going to go into a scroll view. But it's all the icons that are used within the game. And the icon page that I got from RPG Maker has a lot of blank space at the bottom. I'm not sure why, but that's just kind of how they did it. So these are all the different icons that the game uses. Um, and I wanted to show bringing in a separate icon set. It's literally the exact same data structure as the oops at the as the tile sets and even the sprite sheets, but it is just kind of like helpful to separate them out into separate kind of collections so that they're more contextualized. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead and import another icon set. So I'm going to go ahead and click on import here and go to, or I can just copy and paste the path. Okay. So here's the icon set. So this particular icon set has 20 rows and sorry, I just did do this calculation, 16 columns. So you can see there is my icon set right there, nice and loaded. So I'm going to click on OK. And it had the same file name. So the file names that are duplicated just kind of get enumerated. This is just to simplify things. And I can preview this, and you can see here I have my icon set separated by the blue grid lines like everything else. So it's looks I think it looks good as far as presentation goes. And I can remove icon sets as well. Next, I wanted to show the database manager. Now, this is still in development. I'm kind of like adding things as I go. This is something that I'm not even going to bother showing because it's still in development. But this is going to have a whole bunch of tabs here for like the different data items in the game. The thing is, the reason why this is kind of behind is because these data elements, these data entities required a pretty complex like like pretty much a database built in on the internals, and I didn't want to use any pre-existing RDMS because it would have been too big for what I'm trying to do, but I needed just enough features like foreign keys and stuff. So I kind of had to build a lot of that on my manually. But it'll eventually work. So I just wanted to show this thing here. This is kind of where we use a lot of those assets that were came pre-built in. So this is for the title screen. This is actually fully developed so that we can update this, and I'll show that later. You can update the system sounds. So like, what's the sound effect for the cursor, the cancel, the OK, and the buzzer. You can change the UI skin image to be something other than the default, but it still always has to follow that this format here. So if I choose anything else, the UI would look super messed up. But I can do that for fun later in the demo, just as I show like these different things. So global variables, I'm going to go ahead and add a global variable, and I'm going to call this global variable pi. So global variables are kind of values that um, are persisted in the game. So whenever a game file is created, when they click new game, all these variables are going to be created um, and are given their initial value. And then throughout the game, the variables can be changed based on certain events in the game, and those variables would get saved with the user's save file when they saved the game. So when we do this, we edit the name and the initial value. The name doesn't actually matter. It's more for the developer's sake. On the internals, everything, all the assets, all the data elements, all the variables um, are uniquely identified with an UID, a universally unique identifier. So the names don't actually matter. You can have variables with the same name, um, which obviously don't recommend doing that because it'll confuse the developers, but they can if they want to, because to the engine it's all by UUID. So these are global variables. They're meant to be numbers. So this can be like um, gold, even though like gold will be like a special global variable that you won't be able to add or remove. And I'm gonna do like initial gold to be 20. You can see it's all stored as floating point, but when we're displaying them, if it's an integer, it'll display as if it were an integer. But just like it'll pretty much behave like JavaScript or like other like interpreted languages where number it's just number and not actually like different types of numbers. So those are global variables. For some reason, I forgot to put the label here for this one, but these are global flags. So these are true false. Um, these are true false global variables that are mainly meant for like progression. So like you can do like tutorial done and then have this be false when we start, and then in the game if they're still doing the tutorial it'll do one thing, and if it's not doing the tutorial it'll do another thing. So this will be used for like conditional statements that will progress through the game, and have like certain game progressions done or not done. um, so that's all in the for the runtime of the game. So that's what I want to show from the database manager for now. I kind of wanted to show the runtime. So I'm gonna pull up the kind of the current working directory for this application, just so that we can see what's going to happen. The current working directory is a random folder within the project folder, but there's a reason for that. This is the current working directory. It's going to be the local directory of the executable when we actually run it, but I just wanted to show the process of what happens here. So when I run the game, um, let me just double check something. When I run the game, it's going to compile all of that information, which is right now stored as JSON in my actual game in my game folder. Um, and I can go to that quickly. Everything is stored as JSON data. So we have the asset library, which is this big JSON folder with all the assets. Um, and I kept it like tabbed because I do want this to be able to be version controlled really easily. That's kind of a big thing, a big important part to me for this project is to make these games able to go to version control. So all of the data, all the configuration is all JSON based and it's human readable, so that when the things change, the version control can actually keep track of those changes nicely. So you can see everything is in JSON files. Even the elements which haven't that don't have there are elements in there, but you haven't displayed them yet. I haven't really done anything with them yet. But regardless, this is kind of how it looks to the editor. But obviously, I don't want to ship this with the game because one, that makes these super accessible and allows the players of the games to kind of mess with these values. And it also makes the values a lot bigger than they need to be. So, along with each type of data has a JSON format that it can convert to and from JSON, and they also have a binary format to convert to and from binary. So when I go ahead and I run the game, and it's going to be very loud for me, but not as loud for you, uh, that's just like a temporary thing. It loads all those images, and if we look here, we'll see that everything got copied. So we got the assets here. These are the actual assets folder. And then when I go to data, you can see these are all binary files. And we also separated images, music, sound, sprite sheets, and all that. Not only are these binary files smaller than the JSON files, obviously, but then they also go through a zlib compression, so it's even smaller. This way we can save as much space as possible. So you can see this is what I have developed on the runtime so far. It's just the title screen. I can move around here with my arrow keys. I can not hit continue because there's no save games. It's showing the title of the game, and I can go ahead and click on quit. Now that delay on the quit there is a little fast, probably a little bit faster than I really want it to be. But regardless, it still does that. And you can see if it's running through the editor, it then cleans up the current working directory of the editor. That way you can run multiple games and not have it be full of temporary files. So I did want to show like changing some of these things. So for example, I can change the demo to be like, this is cool. And I can change the image to be something else. Let's just change it to be this. This is going to look really ugly in the actual game. It's going to look super messed up, but let's just do it for fun because those are the images I have. And then theme 6, let's change this to the level select. You can see I can preview it in this screen as well. So there's level select. So I'm going to go ahead and change that, close this, and then rerun the editor. You can see here it doesn't look good, and it doesn't look as good anymore. But the point is that you can change the title screen just through configuration without having to look at any of those data files, without having to know how to code. And that's kind of the ethos of this whole project anyways. So for example, the cursor, I can change this to that jump sound effect that I brought in and preview it here as well. And we can see that change also take place in the runtime. So you can see now it goes through and plays that sound effect. And lastly, we can change the UI skin. Again, this isn't something that is really recommended to do unless they know the exact format of the UI skin, but they can if they want to. I mean, they can look at this and kind of figure out the format. So I'm just going to choose this image just for fun. Again, it's going to look... Oh, that's right. So there is actually protections here. The selected image must be 192 by 192 pixels. That is because I was unable to like super generalize the that into the UI skin into like specific data. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually just kind of well, I guess we're just not gonna change the UI skin for now. It's fine. It's pretty much just makes it so that the window is different. And yeah, so I'm gonna change this back to these assets because I do want to show what happens when I try to remove an asset that is already being used by something else. So, for example, the game title, this thing right here, or the theme 6 is being used. If I go into the asset manager and try to remove it, I will get an error that the asset is referenced once or more, so it cannot be deleted. So whenever I set the asset here in the title, it updates a reference count, or like it's not a full dependency graph. I would have liked to do that, but there's so many different types of assets that it just didn't work out. But it is a full reference count, um, that keeps track of that. So if I change this to mac.png, you can see that when I try to remove the mac.png, I will also get the reference exception. So I would have to come in here and change it to something else and make sure it's not referenced anywhere else. That way, you don't break the game by removing an asset that was being referenced. And yeah, so that is about it. I know this was supposed to be a short video and it turned out very long, but that's because this is a really big project and there's a lot of progress that's been made. There's a lot to show off. Okay, well, that is everything for now. Again, in the future, I am planning on getting the map editor to work and having some sort of event editor so that you can talk to different objects in the game and go between maps and have some sort of flow control. So that will be the next steps, and that should all be good to go by May when this project's due. Okay, well, thank you for your time. I know this was super long, so I'm just going to end it now. Thank you. Bye bye.